So this is a graph, and this gentleman says this is just an incredible graph. India is making absolutely amazing strides against poverty in retreat in India. Now, I've spoken about something that happened in 2016, which was demonetization. This obviously is not connected to that. It may be connected to some extent. I've spoken about the impact that India's demonetization had on Pakistan. So in 2016, India's population that was living in extreme poverty was 124 million, almost 9% of India's population. That's an enormous figure. And see where it is today, 15 million. 15. India has brought almost 110 million people out of extreme poverty in just 6 years. Staggering achievement. Incredible. Incredible achievement by India, by the current government of India, the Narendra Modi government. Here is a more complete picture of how extreme poverty has gone down in India. So here you see the details. The dark red over here is the percentage of India that's living in extreme poverty. It was about 140 million or so. So this tells you that the breakup of the entire thing. So even today, if you look at the people who are living above 40 a day, that's a very, very small number of people. But overall, what you would call the middle class is growing. And you are seeing after 2010, maybe after 2016, how suddenly everything has changed drastically. And this has been achieved despite the terrible hardship that the world underwent because of the coronavirus pandemic, when entire nations were under lockdown, including India. It was very hard for India and India's people. And despite this, the government ensured that everybody is taken care of. And look at the results. We've brought people out of extreme poverty. And yeah, so there are details about all that over here. So as you can see, if India has the ability to solve its problems, India is the only nation that can overtake the US in this century. India actually is on track for doing that in the next 20-30 years. If India's growth continues at 6, 7, 8% per year, around that figure, for the next 20 or 30 years, India will overtake the US as the largest economy. But for that to happen, a lot of things need to go right, including the right leadership has to be in power in India. The right people have to be elected. The right policies have to be in place. And India has to ensure that India does not get embroiled in a major military conflict, at least for the next 10 years, minimum. Ideally 20 years. Like Bruce Lee said, if you want to fight, the best way of fighting is to fight without fighting. It's to win without ever firing a single shot. So that's what India needs to find a way of doing. So the future looks bright for India. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. There are lots of problems. There are nations, very powerful nations. We know the usual suspects who don't want India to do well, who don't want India to become a challenger in the future. And they will do their best. They will do their best to create trouble in India. That's where we started this podcast, this episode. And that's where we end. So, and it's a big challenge for India. And that's what makes life interesting and worthwhile. Taking on a big challenge and striving to achieve it. If there are no big challenges, life is dull and boring. So there's this huge opportunity for India, huge challenge for India, and everybody can contribute in their own way.